Hi everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel and part 3 of my 3-part series on the Createx paints. Part 1 being the paint, part 2 being the clear, and part 3 being the wet sand, polish, and wax portion of the program. That's what this one is. Pay no attention to the fan running in the background. It's 80s and 90s here in Michigan, so I definitely need some air circulating in here. But with the wet sanding, polishing, and waxing, I usually only start at 6,000, but for the purpose of this video, I'm starting at 4,000, then the 6,000, 8,000, and then the 12,000. Then the Novus number 2 polish, and then some McGuire's cleaner wax. That's my process. Okay. A lot of you use the polishing compounds from Tamiya. I've never used them. I don't have any. I've never bought any polishing compounds, so I don't know if they work better than the wet sanding and polishing or not. I guess you could probably go right from the clear to the polishing compounds and forget the wet sanding process. Or even after the wet sanding process, you can use 1 or 2 of the compounds, polishing compounds, because I believe there's light and heavy. Like I said, I don't know how they work. I've never used them. I don't have any. So whatever steps there are, you can try them on a test body or a test part, test hood, whatever, to make sure that they're going to be working with the Createx paints. I can't say they will or won't. I've never used them. Okay, so I guess that's it. With that being said, let's get to the video. Alright, so we're going to start with the wet sanding portion of the program, and obviously you need the body to start with. Remember, I have no hood. I have a 1/2 cup bowl, 4-ounce bowl here that I use. Normally I just use tap water, but I got to thinking bottled water would probably be a little bit better than tap water. So this would be my first shot with tap water. That just, after 5 years, it just hit me. Okay, and then I use Micro Mesh Ultraflex cushioned abrasives polishing pads. You could get them from 1,500 all the way up to 12,000. I rarely use anything lower than 4,000. In fact, I actually rarely use 4,000 with the Createx. Most of these I just use for smoothing out the body before primer and stuff like that, or with primer. 1,800 or 2,400 grit, I'll dry sand the primer. Okay, but that's a whole different animal. We're talking about wet sanding and polishing our clear. So normally I start at 6,000 and then go to 8,000 or 12,000. Rarely I'll go to 4,000, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to go ahead and start at the 4,000. Okay. Now they come in 2 by 2 inch pads. You see the surface is glued to a foam pad. Okay. Now what I do to give myself better control over the sanding process is I cut them into quarters to start with. And then I actually peel off the sanding part from the foam. These two have been peeled off and they're stuck together, just as an example, but I take them off. That way I can fold them, do whatever I want. I have much better control, at least to me, over the surface and the pressure that I use when I sand. Okay, that's why I do it. It just gives me better control. It may not work for all of you, but that's what I do. Okay, if you feel more comfortable using the full pad, by all means use the full pad. This is just what works for me, what I figured out. Okay, so that's how we're going to start with 4,000. You have your color code here. I've got them down to a science, I know them by heart, but get them all spread out in the order which I use them. Okay, you also don't really need a full bowl of this stuff. A little bit will do. You're going to want to empty the cup, rinse it out, and pour some fresh water in it with every grit. Okay, every grit you're going to want to do that. Okay. So to start with, I have the water over here, and I use an old kitchen towel to wipe off the excess water with. Normally I start with the hood, but I don't have a hood, so I'm going to start with the fenders. I go to the hood, then the fenders. I do sections at a time. Okay, the key to this really is you don't want things too wet. You want them wet, but not too wet. Like I say, I squeeze out any excess water from the pad. It's just wet, it's not dripping. And I'm going to try to keep this in camera, but it's hard for me to see because I'm half blind. I just get the surface wet, and just very lightly, especially with the 4000 grit, just enough pressure to keep the pad on the surface. You really don't want to use too much pressure, especially around some of these high points and low points, because you will burn through rather quickly. Okay, you don't want to do too much at once, like I say, and this is where I like to use the pad like this. I can fold it and manipulate it a lot better. At least for my skill level, I don't think I'm overly great at doing this kind of stuff. Okay, back into the bowl. And I don't know if you saw any of that, but now I'm going to wipe it away and check it out and make sure I have a really smooth surface. And go over it once or twice, but you don't want to go over it too much. Once again, squeeze all the water out. Just a quick swipe to get it wet. Not using a lot of pressure. You see, I'm removing a lot of clear here. That's why I put 5 coats on. And a little bit different with the lacquers and stuff like that, because those dry a lot harder. Okay. You got a little bit more here I want to get. Squeeze out any excess water. Just get it a little wet. And just be very careful on your edges. And this is also why I save a lot of paint when I do my painting. For this particular color, I got half a bottle left still. I tend to burn through on these little edges here for whatever reason. Okay, looking pretty good. I'm going to do the other side. I said I'm not going to do the whole car. Do a little bit, then I'll show you the really big part, which is the roof. So this is a pretty tricky part of the car. On top of the fender here. Sorry if you can't really see much, if I'm shaking the camera. And we inspect it to make sure we're smooth and we don't have any more orange peel or anything like that. So like I say, I'll do that. I'm going to do the whole car, then I'm going to come to the roof and show you the roof. But I'll do the tops of the fenders, then I'll do sometimes not even a whole fender. Okay, you don't want the surface too wet. I'll get back to it on the roof. And you don't want to leave the water on there too long. This is water-based clear and water-based paint. Even though it's been given a week to cure and everything, it is still going to, the water is still going to penetrate. Now 3 or 6 months from now you might not have that issue, but within a couple of weeks, yeah. So I'll do a section at a time, a fender, then a door, then probably half a quarter panel, then the other half, then I'll do the trunk, and then I'll come around and do the other side. And usually I do the roof last. Okay, but I'm going to skip to the roof right now. Okay, so the rest of the car is done, and now it is time for the roof. What I'll do is sometimes I cut into quarters and do a quarter of it at a time, or like a third of it at a time, or even just half of it at a time. We'll see how we're going here. Probably try to do about half of it with each step. So you just want to get the surface a little moist here, not overly wet. I'll try to keep everything in the camera. See if I can see everything here. Very light, especially around those edges. You really don't want too much pressure there. You can see the milky color. That means some of the clear is coming off. Just be very careful. Dry it off. Don't let the water pool for too long. You really don't want that. Looking good. We'll do another little run here on this side. That should ought to do it. Again, not too much pressure, because if the clear starts to soften, you will start peeling it up if you put too much pressure on it. Okay, wipe it away once again. Take a good look at it. I'm gonna have to go off camera for this to get it closer to my eyes here. Okay, it's pretty smooth and looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. So now I'll go to the other side. Actually, I probably did more like 2/3 of it, but you know, I'll come back over and get that part again for the other half too. So usually evens out in the end anyways. Try to get up and around. I'm not too worried about the window trim because normally you've got foil going over it, so it doesn't matter if you burn through on the window trim. You're just going to cover it up with foil anyways. But these edges here above it, you don't want to get. Go back over that a little bit too. Let me say, my technique for wet sanding might not be the best out there. Just giving you a general idea of not so much the technique, but just how you're going to do it. The grits and everything else. There we are. Wipe that nice and smooth. Give it another once over here. A little bit lighter. That should be good. Wipe it off. I'll check it out again off camera so I can get closer to my eyes. See if we're ready for the next grit. Okay, it's looking good, nice and smooth. I'm liking that. So I'm gonna go up to the next grit, which is 6,000. I'm gonna empty my cup, refill it with some fresh water. I'll be right back. Okay, so funny thing, I somehow managed to not record the 6,000 grit wet sanding process, but no big deal. It's the same as the 4,000. You wet, you wet the roof, you wet the part, not too much moisture. It's the same process as the 4,000, the 8,000, and the 12,000. I just happened to somehow not do it. I think I paused the recording. And when I came back to do the 6,000, I saw it looked like it was still recording. I'm like, well, this is gonna be a long thing to edit out, but turns out it was just paused and I didn't unpause it. So, hey, stuff like that happens to me. What can I say? Sorry about that. So, on to the 8,000. All right, I am on the 8,000 grit now. I have gone all around the body with the 8,000, and now it's time for the roof to finish up the 8,000. Okay, I've done the whole car with this bowl of water, and it's barely discolored now. So that's what happens when you move up the grits. By the time you're done with the 12,000, it's probably still going to look drinkable. I wouldn't, but you know. Okay, so the roof with the 8,000. Try to keep it in view. Sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do. Gets a little blurry or whatnot. Sorry about that. Very, very light pressure, probably even lighter pressure than with the previous grits. Basically, you just want it skimming across the surface. Speaking of skimming across the surface, now, a lot of people suggest using a drop of Dawn dish liquid in your water when you wet sand. I would do that if you're doing lacquers and solvent based, but I would not use it. I do not use it with the Createx water based. Okay, I just don't. You don't need anything else, any kind of detergent or anything messing with your water based clear. Okay, it's bad enough you got regular water pooling up on it. You don't need any water with any kind of cleaner or detergent in it doing that. So I do not use Dawn dish liquid. I do not use a drop, not even a drop, when I wet sand the Createx or any water based. Now, I do when I use the lacquer, because every once in a while I will break out the spray cans and spray paint a car and use the lacquer clear, usually it's the Tamiya. When I wet sand that, yes, I will put a drop of Dawn in my water when I do that, but not for the water-based. Okay, that should do it. Drop my towel here, get my towel and wipe it off. Very light. You want to wipe this stuff off very lightly. Every grit, when you wipe off your water, very lightly. You don't need to scrub it in. Okay, we're looking really, really good here. You can see my light, my overhead light in the reflection. Looking really, really good. You could actually stop there at the 8,000. Some people think the 12,000 is overkill. I like using the 12,000. So that will be the next step. I'll be right back with the 12,000 grit. Okay, time for the final grit of the wet sanding process, and that is going to be the 12,000 grit. Okay, that's the pink sheet. I have already gone all around the body, once again, with the 12,000, including the trunk, and now it's time to do the roof. Moisten your surface, and again, very light pressure. Really, really light. Like with the 8,000, you barely want it just basically skimming across the surface. And we'll go back across the grain here. Again, very lightly. Wipe away. And now for the other side, same process. Get the water out of the way before I dump it. Very light pressure. And very lightly go across the grain again on this side. And we just wipe it away. Make sure you don't have any water anyplace else. And there we are. We are done with the wet sanding process. We got a few little spots of where the paint, a few dark spots right there where we got a little spot of paint there, but that's under the clear. Let's see the rest of the body. All set and ready for the polish. I'll get the polish ready in just a second. Okay, so now we come to the polishing part of the program, and I use Novus number 2 fine scratch remover after the wet sanding. I got a little pamphlet with mine. I don't have the heavy scratch remover. I only had the fine scratch remover, and the clean and shine, I don't even use the clean and shine, okay? Honestly, I just use the number 2. And it tells you how to use the product. So you just follow the instructions. Very simple. I'll give you a quick guideline of how I do it. I use, these are 5-inch squares. I got these on Amazon. Bonnie Sullivan Woolies 5-inch squares from Maywood Studios. I'll leave a link in the description. I don't know if I'll find these exact ones, but I got a bag of these like 5 years ago. I still got some left, obviously. I cut them in half, and I even label them. Polish off. I can use them 2 or 3 times. And polish on. I cut one of these in half for applying the polish. Okay. You can use them, like I said, multiple times. You're not going to use the whole square just putting polish on. So that's how I do it. Now, I'll give you a quick guide here. Shake it up really good. Some dust and stuff on my body. Get yourself an unused portion. Right there. Just squeeze out a dab. You don't want a bunch. That's too much for what I was going to do, so I'll start with the roof. And I use a swirling motion. To rub it in. Make sure you cover it all, which is all covered, and just move on to a different section. On the door and on the corner, on the front fender here. And the top of the other fender. Let it dry on. I usually give it 15 or 20 minutes and then come back and wipe it off. So I'll see you in about 15 minutes. Okay, so now it is time to remove the polish. I went ahead and grabbed a fresh cloth. I cut this one in half to remove the polish. Pretty simple process. You just wipe it off and it comes right off. moving it around to get to a cleaner portion of it every so often. And now to the roof. The roof is usually the part that draws the most attention, the part that you see the most. We'll use that as our example. See how we look. Okay. Looking pretty good. Pretty happy with how this is turning out. Looking pretty good. Now, the rest of this stuff, you'll get some in your door jambs and on the edges and stuff like that. Just go back in. I'm not going to show every single little thing I do. Just go in and get it with your cloth. You go back and get inside your fender wells and stuff and around your trim. Just go back and get that real good. I'm not going to spend too much time showing you all that. Then inside your door jambs and stuff, you can get a sharpened toothpick and just run it through there and get all that out, and around some of your other edges. You're going to want to do that. Okay, so that is the polish on and polish off portion of things. I'll be right back to show you the wax part. Okay, so we are back for the wax portion of the program. The final step. You don't necessarily have to take this step. I do, I like to. I use Meguiar's cleaner wax. This is just what the store happened to have. I was looking for a name brand and everything like that. When I went shopping years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, this just jumped out at me the most to buy, so I bought the cleaner wax. You know, I barely use maybe a quarter of it, if that. I don't use it on my real car. I just use it on my model cars. So I've used about a quarter of it, okay, in 5 years. You can use any wax, turtle wax, whatever you want. Like I said, this is just what I grabbed because it's clear coat safe. That's what got me. It was clear coat safe. Okay, same process pretty much as the polish. I'm sure most of you guys have done it, know how to do it. You know how to apply wax. Okay, shake it up really good, just like the polish. Get a little bit on your cloth. Some of it gooped out onto the roof already, so we'll start there. Same as the polish, you just want to rub it in. I use a swirling motion, a circular motion. Go down onto your little pillars here. Keep it consistent and do the driver's side first. Try to keep it in view. I have a hard time with that sometimes, keeping my work in the camera view here. So sorry about that. Apologies for every time I move it out of view. Just make sure you got everything covered. Put a little bit more on there. I let the wax set for at least a half an hour. Sometimes I'll let it sit for a couple hours. It doesn't affect it. It's not like a real car. It's not sitting in sunlight or anything like that, so not gonna hurt it. I said anywhere from a half an hour to a couple hours. We'll come back and then we'll remove it. Okay, so about a half an hour has passed. The wax is definitely dried on. Like I said, I have fans blowing in here, so everything's drier. So I am going to go ahead and remove the wax, and we'll start from the first part where I put it on. Just keep things consistent. If I applied the wax on this side, I'm going to take it off on this side first. So we'll just remove the wax, just like we removed the polish. Just like all of you already know how to remove the wax. So I will zip around the whole body and meet you at the roof. Okay, everything has been wiped off and now we are to the roof. I don't think you guys want to watch me wipe off wax for 5 minutes. So we'll skip to the roof. Do a quick wipe off here. Get along the chrome trim, where the chrome trim's gonna be. We'll talk about that in a second too. All right. And there we are. There is our body. In my opinion, very smooth, very shiny, very reflective. Now let me get to some questions before you guys ask them or whatever. After this is the stage where next I apply the bare metal foil. Okay, I foil after all of this. The foil still sticks quite well to the body, even though it's been wet sanded, polished, and waxed. All right, no problems whatsoever. That's my method. That's what I've been doing for quite a while now. Not had an issue yet. Same with the decals. The decals go on after the foil actually, and will go around the wheel wells on this car in particular, but even on any other car. I put the decals on last. The decals adhere, once again, very nicely even to the waxed body. No issues, no problems whatsoever. That's my process. That's how I do it. No issues whatsoever. Okay? So that's how I do it. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching. Hopefully this answered some questions and helps everybody out there. Oh, one more thing. Okay, I don't know if you can see it right there, but I did burn through a little bit right there. The only spot, happy to say, that I burned through. Probably, yeah, you barely see it there. A very discreet part of it. I do that often, okay? That's why I always have extra paint. Don't really need an extra bottle of this because it was just a turquoise, but when you custom mix colors, you definitely want to have extra for this purpose. I will just take a nice soft brush, not this one, but one that's like it, dip it into paint, and very lightly just brush over where you burn through, it might take a couple of times, brush it on, okay, and it'll cover it. And then if you want to just brush some clear back over it, as long as it's, you know, not in any really overly obvious spot, you know. So just to answer that quick question too, yes, I do burn through, and I do use the paint to touch it up. Works pretty good, not noticeable at all. And on your trim, okay, on this little trim, you know, where the marker lights are and stuff, yeah, I burn through on the edges of the marker lights and on the door lock right there, but I don't care, because I put foil over my side marker lights, and then I use clear paint for the actual color. Say for the front, I will use, to me, a clear orange over the bare metal foil for the marker light, and I will dab a piece, some chrome paint over the door lock here, or some kits even have decals for it. So I don't really care if I burn through on that stuff, or where the chrome trim goes for that matter. All right, once again, I hope that answers everything. Thanks for watching Stumpy Grump Scale Speed Shop. I hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned for more content.